Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Collective. I'm your host, James Hicks from Hicks New Media. And on this show, we talk to the people, we talk about the platforms and the tools that are making positive strides within the technology sector today. Today, my guest, a friend of the community, Mr. Larry O'Connor, who is the founder and CEO of OWC. OWC, Otherworld Computing, has been a pioneer in the technology, storage, and capacity space for over going on 4 decades. I don't want to date the man, but he's getting up there in terms. He's got more gray in his beard than I do. Uh, we're going to talk a little bit about enterprise level technology with a consumer focus and some of the things that are also happening at OWC that are relevant to that particular topic. Let's get into it. See, I shouldn't have said that. I'm probably many years older, a little more seasoned, more gray in the beard than Larry O'Connor. So I apologize up front for that remark, sir. How
Not
are
at
you,
all, man.
Larry?
I shave it all off, so you can't see that
Well, I,
gray.
I left it today so I can look somewhat like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know.
Fair
It's not
enough.
working. Larry, what is good? Listen, I did some research and I said the last time we talked was May 18th of last year, and that was right around nap time. And subsequently, here we are again, and not too far from NAB this particular year. What is, I would say, tell the people who are in the community who don't know you, but like I said, you're a friend of the community already, but go ahead and give, I guess, the 35,000 foot level introduction of who Larry O'Connor is and what Max Sales slash OWC slash all the things are and is.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm the founder and CEO of Otherworld Computing. Otherworld was started back in 1988, so we're in our 35th year. Otherworld Computing today provides literally everything for creatives, for home, for business, from capture to completion. So it's a pretty amazing ecosystem today that includes media cards, high performance storage, highly reliable, redundant storage, docks for connectivity, software applications that monitor and enable pretty cool features with your drives, cross compatibility software, and I could go on and on. But ultimately, we've been focused on extending the life of your technology, seeing the computers you have, the Macs, primarily go to the distance, and whether your technology is a decade old or brand new, we want to have the solutions that let you do everything you want to do and do so without having to worry about what you've plugged in. So we try to make it easy, and we give you stuff that's built to last. We definitely don't believe in making you replace things or
Hmm.
that whole planned obsolescence baloney.
That's true. Listen, all the stuff that I've ever seen, ever gotten, ever uh, told folks to go buy and look at from OWC has always been top notch and of the most high quality. So I only advocate for those types of organizations, and that's why you're back here, sir, to have this conversation. Uh, you made a distinction there that again, the name Max Sales, but again, you actually are more cross-platform now, and there are components and technologies that the company has. I just want to make that distinctive analysis there that you're not just Mac, you're primarily Mac, but you actually have more components as well for those PC folks.
Sure,
Bless their hearts.
I've been an Apple user forever,
Yeah.
but our solutions we've long supported for PC. And quite frankly, in the world today, I mean, there's no company that has more Thunderbolt solutions, for Mac or for PC. So it's a matter of, I mean, we build. It's harder to build for the Apple platform. Things that the thresholds for proper operation on a Mac are a lot higher than those, than they are on a PC. So ultimately, getting the passing grade and making things work, excellent on the Mac platform means they are top of the top of the hill, king of the mountain, so to speak, in the PC space. It's a lot easier to build stuff that will get by on the PC side, and honestly, we have to compete with that stuff
Mm.
versus the requirements that make it very difficult to have problems with hardware show up very quickly on a Mac that get kind of covered up and show up at less likely and less obvious times on the PC side.
That's
So
a good
for
distinction.
PC users, you're getting the best here.
I would say
For
that's a
Mac
great
users, I mean,
distinction, right?
we're building it for. I mean, we're building it to make sure that it's the very best that you can have, because that's the
Yeah,
only way to build.
I love that. We should have someone from your engineering department come on next time and give all the horror stories, right? Everything that goes on from the QA side and right, trying to be cross compatible for the PC world as well. So um, a lot of
You
what
know,
you're
most of it's
doing,
actually, I have to say, most of it's really easy because, again, the thresholds we have to cross for Apple
yeah.
are typically much higher than they are for PC, which is great. I mean, that's why everything works so great on Mac, honestly. PC is where most of the challenges come up, and it ends up not being necessarily our hardware, it ends up being a limitation of the PC. You don't want to get me started on Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4. I mean,
We won't do
Thunderbolt
that. We
3,
did that last year, right? And
yep.
and and you almost got on top of the table and started screaming and pointing at me, and I got scared. So no, we don't want to do that again.
Well, it is worth reminding if you're a
Yeah.
Mac user, Thunderbolt 4 is not a new technology. It's not a plus one over Thunderbolt 3 technology. Thunderbolt 4 is mainly for PCs and established a line in the sand that if you're buying a PC Windows machine today, a machine that's Thunderbolt 4 has all the great features that Thunderbolt 3 was already providing on a Intel Mac. So I mean, that really is the big difference. In cables, we do have the nice cable thing. I mean, they did some cool marketing things with cables, but it's people have gotten really over the last 6 months, and sorry to even kind of hijack into
This is
for
all
you.
you, Larry. You couldn't hold it in. Go ahead, sir.
But I'd say over the last 6 months, especially, people have really over, I say, have forgotten, or maybe it's a marketing thing, but have concluded incorrectly that if it's not Thunderbolt 4, it's not the latest and greatest. And that's just not true. So when you're buying a dock, when you're buying a drive, when you're buying anything, honestly, look at the ports and the peripheral and the capabilities you need, not if it's Thunderbolt 4 or Thunderbolt 3. Look at what it does for you, because Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4 are synonymous in terms of peripherals. There's only one Thunderbolt 4 chipset, and it wasn't designed to replace any Thunderbolt 3 chipset. It was designed for a specific capability, and that's why we have docks and hubs and a mini stack to give you additional Thunderbolt ports. That is the only thing that the so-named Thunderbolt 4 chipset delivered, and that's no different than when we actually brought out Alpine Ridge and then Titan Ridge, and now we have Ghost Ridge. Those are all Thunderbolt 3 chipsets with different purposes. Alpine Ridge is for bus power devices. Titan Ridge is for full-featured desktop devices. Ghost Ridge, being really the third 40 gigabit peripheral chipset, is there to allow us to provide, in addition to limited capability in ports and in the peripheral, downstream Thunderbolt 40 gigabit ports for having more flexibility with your
Mm,
Thunderbolt stream.
love
Yeah.
it.
If we
So
built everything with Ghost Ridge today, which we could, other than bus powered, you'd hate us because everything would be one fourth the speed, since you only get one fourth the capability on the peripheral side
yeah,
of a Ghost Ridge equipped product. All right, I'm done.
you're not done. We're gonna circle back because I'm gonna pick at the scab and we're gonna make it happen. And because Tech Troublemaker here, Roy says he has the OWC Thunderbolt 4 hub. He was
Cool.
fortunate enough to get one. I looked, and every time I tried to find one, it was sold out or wasn't available yet. So he's got one, and obviously I know he's a technologist as well, and he says he prefers to future proof himself from a technology perspective. So glad he was able to acquire one of those. Um, I mean, let me ask you this, right? So again, coming from connectivity perspective, coming from what did you recently announce at NAP, if there was anything? Because last year it was mainly about jellyfish, and it was about some of those larger production types of functionality and capability pieces. But was there anything at NAB that you were exclusively showing for content creators, for video creators, and for photographers and things of that nature? Since that's really where you're going now, right? A lot of the products that you're putting out are for audio video professionals.
Absolutely. And NAB this year, we have the opportunity to introduce our new Energize ecosystem with our Atlas media cards and Atlas readers, which also, by the way, the Energize technology also works on the readers that are built into all of our docks as well, including our travel dock, which is really a nice plus. This system, and I said, first off, we have, there's lots of good media cards in the market. I would argue that the OWC Atlas cards are top of game. And one thing we did see at the show our media cards, if we release a card and we say it's compatible, we have made sure that it is perfect, that there's not a circumstance or a bug on the camera, which a lot of the times, I mean, stuff is getting a lot faster. It's getting a lot more complicated. And guess what? Stuff is happening now on the manufacturer side with cameras that didn't happen a few years ago, certainly not to the degree that it happens today. When we release a media card and say it's compatible with a camera, it's because we've either worked with the manufacturer to help them eliminate a bug on their side, or we've been able to circumvent that with our own firmware and code in terms of the actual device CFX or SD card that we release. We want our customers to have, well, never have an experience where they can't capture a moment that they're not going to get back. The other piece of Energize, kind of along the lines of this, with future proofing, since somebody mentioned future proofing, is the ability to do a field firmware update. In the past, there's been cases where a camera manufacturer does do an update to their camera that changes compatibility or changes the way it may function with existing cards that have already been shipped in the market. Compatible one day, not compatible the next. And our Energize software allows you in the field, with a Mac or a PC, to upgrade the firmware on our CFX and SD cards for something that may have changed related to that compatibility. Or new cameras come out that requires a different setting or a different parameter or some provision specific to that camera. You can now do that with our card reader and that Energize software. And it doesn't cost you anything. You have to have an OWC card reader. It only works on Atlas cards. And that's not because we've restricted anything. It's simply because to do this, the cards have to be enabled for it. And majority of cards, the typical, for the most part of most manufacturers, if something new comes out, well, you got to buy a new card.
Yeah.
If something new comes out, the OWC way is no, let's support update. And the same goes for the card readers to enable being able to pass these specific commands in the cards. We actually have firmware on these readers that support that. And prior OWC devices, we have firmware updates for that add the capability. So even going back about 5 years, customers with our docks, for example, that have the SD readers built in, people with, our Pro docks that have CFX, they'll be able to update those readers so that they are able to support the full feature set of Energize. And in the meantime, new solutions going out already have that support. Even a travel dock we've been shipping for about 5 years, you can update the reader, the SD card reader in that dock to support the Energize capability. The other big thing, though, that Energize does is it offers both the health checks. You always know how much media life is left, and these cards shall last forever. But it's kind of peace of mind, be able to click and go, okay, good, I still got 95%, or even I still got 30%. I mean, really, even when you hit, the reality is, even when you hit zero, you're not really at zero. And it takes, it's by the time you're probably going to need a much bigger card in 5 or 6 years before these cards exhaust themselves. But what happens with a lot of cards is they end up being put on the shelf early because the cards start rejecting them because they've gotten dirty. And by dirty, there's no garbage, there's no maintenance of what's happening in that card as it's collecting, as it's right, is this being dumped data from your camera at really high speed. It's capturing, putting it on, and then that data is being deleted. It's put back in the camera. There's no real reorganization of the blocks on that particular card. And the technical term, although it's an interesting technical term, is the card's getting dirty. The cache is becoming inefficient. The controller is not not been given time to reallocate, so to speak, the mapping. So that, it's discrete. It's an electronic product, but it's not being given the chance to keep things optimal. And with Sanitize, which is a feature of Energize, it takes less than 5 seconds on a card, in addition to secure wiping the card. So if you're going to pass this on to another project, there's no concern of something that you don't want to share from a capture, the film, whatever else. There's no, you don't have to worry about data being leaked inadvertently. It also restores that card to its initial fastest factory performance state. So as fast as the first time you use it, every time you sanitize, it restores it back to that state. Now, you don't have to sanitize every time you use the card, but sanitizing always means that card as if it was a brand new, fresh card. The lifespan, the health status, and the life is independent of what that card can do in terms of its factory fresh performance capability. And as long as there's right cycles left on the card, you're not past 0%. There's no reason or no limitation of getting the full speed out of these cards that you own. if that makes sense.
So I was going to ask, what makes OWC cards, what makes the Atlas cards different than the $17 ones that we see at Best Buy or on Amazon? And that 101, 201 level introduction right there that you just gave was gold. Right, because again, we as technologists a lot of times are talking to folks who are either coming into the field or coming into this workspace, this industry, and they're trying to decide what hardware, software, componentry to buy. Right, and if we make a recommendation, and a lot of times the first thing that they see is the price tag, and
Sure.
it's a price versus cost conversation. I would like to say so the value that you get for whatever those particular the Atlas cards cost, plus that functionality that you get with the Energize software, that's where it's at right there, right? Being able to upgrade the firmware, now that's huge, right? I don't know if is anyone else, probably someone else is doing it, but I don't know if anyone else is doing as good as you are.
Yeah, we're the only company providing a free application cross-platform that provides this. I think there's one other company that has a firmware update capability, but it's pretty limited. The other really cool thing about Energize for a professional that's ingesting multiple cards, there's one other company that has a sanitize type tool, but it works on one card at a time. With our product, you've got 3 of our readers, you got 5 of our readers plugged in, and you've got all your bays loaded with cards. You can simultaneously update and you can firmware update, sanitize, as many cards as you want, health check, whatever it is. It's multi-thread, and it's not a one at a time type of product. And if you look at our readers are very competitively priced. All of our products, including our cards, are actually really competitively priced versus equal competition. I mean, there's always going to be cheaper generic. I won't say anything else other
Don't
than
throw anybody under the bus, right? Let me do that. You throw other folks.
They're $17 cards I would be suspect of over brand cards that are sold at a fair price. And we're pretty competitive and in line, if not below, a lot of the equivalent V60 and V90 cards. But with V60s especially, a lot of cameras are fine with V60s. Our V60s, especially if you keep them sanitized, are actually able to provide performance consistently at a V90 level. And that's something that actually one of our guys has really been promoting, because he's like, you can save a lot of money on V60s for some of the lower end. Even if it's not lower end, I mean, it's the bottom line is when I say low end, you're still capturing it, V90 plus speeds. But for people that don't have extreme needs and aren't doing a rapid rotation on their V90s where they've got time to do a sanitize, and they're not using a V90 for higher than true V90. A lot of our V60 cards, actually all of our V60 cards, provide those performance levels. And for the longevity and just the ongoing peace of mind with the card, when you look at just what sanitize enables, period, to be able to keep that card at full speed, up to date, and everything else, this is not a card that you're going to prematurely put on a shelf because it's gotten dirty and no longer is operating right. And you don't have to waste write cycles. I mean, you can kind of do a deep erase on a card, which takes hours to do without a built-in function like we put into our cards, but that also wastes a full write cycle on the card, which isn't a good thing either. So there's lots of that. The biggest thing is we built these cards because we know you're capturing things that you're not. If you miss a capture, miss a moment, it's gone.
Yeah, you can never get that. That's true. You can never get that back. So we rely on that hardware. And I will say I knew the answer to that question, but I just wanted to have the audio clip of you actually saying that no one does it better than OWC. You didn't use those exact words, but that's the words that I'm going to give back to you.
We have really good experience, honestly, in the space period when it comes to the whole NAND. This is effective. These are now solid state devices for off-record purposes. And I'll be honest, there's plenty of good cards, decent cards in the market, but when you put our experience together along with our entire ecosystem, there literally is no better ecosystem to have the best capture experience than Atlas provides, and that's for CF Express B and SDV60 and SDV90 today. So it's just pretty slick. And then you go to our readers. Now we have a lot of cameras are doing the SD and the CFX. We've got a reader that does both. We've also got a dual SD reader. And both these readers, for situations where you don't want to have a chance of accidentally deleting or sanitizing the card, which you have to click a bunch of times. Well, not a bunch of times, but you do have to. It does make sure you're sure when you want to wipe a card. But if you absolutely want to make sure that there's not a chance, the readers that we provide also have write protect switches, which the software will call out and note that that you're write protected, read only, so that as you're ingesting cards, no one can click a couple extra times and even accidentally have a moment
Hmm.
that they can't bring back.
So that's also software initiated as opposed to just a tab on the side of the card.
No, it's hardware enabled, but
Yeah.
the software recognizes the write
Okay.
protect. So if
Okay.
you try to sanitize the card, actually it shows the write protect, and if you try to sanitize the card, it won't even start anything or delete the card or do anything with the files in the card. As long as that write protect switch has been flipped on the actual physical reader, it will warn you and basically advise that no, it's how do I say, you need to disable. You got to turn the write protect off.
Yeah. So that's huge right there. So again, that brings it back into the content creation and the digital and the audio production space. I see my friend Tallboy here, who's also on the consumer space. I may have introduced you to him at NAB last year, and he was asking the question about cross compatibility and cross platform. Tallboy, you missed that part. We talked about that earlier. Even though the name of the company Max Sales, they are cross platform, and they are a lot of Windows PC capabilities as well. It's just harder to create on the Mac side for good reason, but everything will still work on the Windows side. Let, let me
Now
let me
I mean, we certify, we test. I mean, every Thunderbolt product we put out is certified on both Intel, well, on Windows and on Mac OS. It's not, how to say, and again, the threshold tends to be a bit higher on the Mac side, but everything is, I won't say I can't say that it's easier. I mean, the Thunderbolt certification isn't easier anywhere, but the thresholds for some of the certifications, some of the requirements on the Mac side in general are higher. The expectations are certainly higher, in terms of the user experience on the Mac customer side. But all of our solutions are tested, certified, and actually built for Mac and Windows. Even Energize, the software application that really ties our readers and our cards. I mean, we have the best readers in the market. I'll say that hands down today. I mean, there just aren't better readers. They're the fastest readers, the most feature-rich readers. They're also, in terms of portability, they have a built-in cable. They also let you, so it's a built-in cable that actually nests in the bottom of the cable, so it's really easy to travel with. But if you're in a workflow at home or in an office or anywhere where a different cable makes better sense, or you want to just be able to plug in, it also has support for plug-in. So you can use the
Mhm.
built-in cable or your own cable, which is pretty darn unique. Our media cards, top of game, period. I mean, we'll go up against anybody that says that they're the best. We're absolutely, if not above them, we're there with them. But then you take Energize, and Energize honestly elevates both those solutions, our readers as well as our cards, to a very different level. Because we're built, I mean, we're looking this, like, the long term is what we're here for. And that's also, I hate to use the word sustainability, but it's economically and also just use of resources, seeing things,
Mhm.
building
No,
things.
that's a good point, right? Again, because a lot you were thinking sustainability before it was popular, right? Now you've got Google and the Apple and all those companies talking about how green they are, but you consciously started the organization thinking about those aspects of what you were putting out there in the marketplace, that they were sustainable, that they were higher quality, longevity. Is that a real word? No, that's not a real word.
Longevity, yeah.
Well,
Built for
what are
longevity.
you
How
going to
about
do,
that?
right? Uh,
No
let me.
worries.
I want to ask you something about this before I forget because I'm getting old. Um, as the world opens back up and we start getting back out there again, we're going to these conferences, and again, a lot of video creators, a lot of uh, folks within this industry are capturing higher 4K now, maybe 6K, 8K. We're
Mhm.
capturing higher quality video, and you already kind of alluded to again. The cards were meant to make sure that you don't miss that moment that you're looking to capture. Talk about maybe what you're doing as well in terms of providing hardware, software, technologies for those on the go and being able to transfer data from your laptop. I'm not going to say MacBook Pro. I'm not going to just say an Apple
Sure.
product, but I'm say from your laptop to from your camera to your laptop, and then what that workflow looks like from a remote perspective, especially if we don't want to carry a whole bunch of gear.
Sure. I mean, anything from, again, the portable readers are great. Those work with tablets as well. We have the Go Dock, which gives you video
Say that.
out
Hold
HDMI.
on. Say that again. Say. I'm not going to let you gloss over that. The
The
readers
Go
work.
Dock
No,
is
the
the Go
readers work
Dock
with
is a,
tablets, right? I mean,
yes,
that's not just something that people should assume.
yes.
That's
Our
good stuff.
readers work with tablets. If you have USB capability on your tablet, our readers absolutely work with your tablets. Our readers even work with the Apple Lightning tablets when you use the USB adapter that Apple offers. So ingesting to a tablet is absolutely a-okay today. And our Go Dock, which is our full feature Thunderbolt dock, works with the Surface. It works with the new iPad Pros that have Thunderbolt, and provides an SD reader, provides USB ports, provides video out, provides Ethernet, so you can literally turn your tablet, especially an iPad Pro, into a full-on editing station, anywhere you go with just that dock, which also will power the tablet. The dock also will power a laptop. I mean, whether there's a laptop or a tablet, PC or Mac, it's got you covered pretty amazingly. And I wanted to touch on that cross compatibility earlier with Energize. Energize right now is shipping for Windows only, and that's mainly because it just took a little bit longer to get the Mac version, I say, aligned. And that it just, again, there's more there's more to do on the Mac side than there is typically on the PC side. But nonetheless, the Mac version of Energize is about 1 to 2 weeks away from release. But we're building, like, my personal preference, and I won't be shy about it, has always been Apple and Mac. But at the end of the day, we absolutely support across our entire ecosystem what you need to get your work done. And that's why if you look at the workflows and the devices are great. Talking about those again, Chromebook, iPad, Windows laptop, Mac. We're not restricting use of our solutions, and we absolutely test and certify those solutions. And the same with the cards. I mean, every Atlas card that we ship, if we say it's compatible with the camera, it's not because it's spec compatible. It's because we've actually brought that camera in or own that camera and do ongoing, really heavy testing with it. It's why, honestly, we did not release a couple higher capacity cards yet. We will be releasing higher capacity CFX cards, for Red, for example. But the reason we did not release those cards is because we saw issues, and quite frankly, customers of cars that were released, I would say prematurely into the market, have seen those issues as well. We make sure our stuff works.
Wow. That's a good point, because I had that in my notes as well. Wondering why there weren't any some of the larger capacity cards from OWC, but that right there answers that question as well. So again, everything consciously and methodical in terms of what you're putting out there in the marketplace.
I wanted to have our Ultra CFX 1 TB and 2 TB cars. Those are supposed to be shipping a couple months ago. If we had shipped them, it would have been a great disservice to our customers, and it's not worth it. It really isn't worth it. It would have been really foolish to do it for roughly 60-70% of the market that consumes and can use it all. We have Pro 1 and 2 TB, no problem. Those are 100% A-OK for cars that require that level. For the Ultra, which is a much higher performance, that's where you are capturing 6K and 8K video, where you need sustained write speeds that are in the 1300 plus megabyte per second without any possible glitch. Those applications, we can't, we just can't fall down on. And we did find that there were fall downs in some of the initial versions that were available for release, and that's been squared. We all work out there with similar controllers. There's only a couple, how to say, NAND controllers in the marketplace. So we're working all with the same pool, but what we do with that pool and how we develop our firmware, that is unique, and that's certainly where I do believe OWC gives you a good advantage. Certainly the advantage is product that we've shipped it's going to work. And if later somebody changes something, I know Blackmagic a few years ago made a change on a media card that literally made all the cards people had of a certain type stop working or become incompatible. And then there was the mix-up in the market of, okay, it's been fixed, it's been updated, there's new firmware on cards you can buy, but who's got old cards and who's got new cards? With OWC, that won't matter because you'll get a field update, and every card you have and every card you buy will always be able to support that update.
I love that. And this is so timely, because everything that you're saying and everything that Tech Troublemaker just talked about, we will need extra storage on our iPads, because today Apple kind of announced that, oh, look, we're finally getting Final Cut Pro on the iPads. So right, we're all, of course, going to get it, and we're all going to be now probably moving from some other platforms and going to be extracting our content from our 4K cameras onto our iPads now, and wanting to have no issues with that data transfer. So I'm gonna rely on OWC. I hope everyone else does as well. That's my little pitch right there, my little plug for OWC. But again, this is just
Thanks.
timely having this conversation because someone like Apple is finally saying that Final Cut Pro is coming to the iPad. And again, for that portability perspective, as again creators start getting out there in the streets and actually creating content, gathering content, things of that nature. This is really front frame of mind right here.
Well, coincidentally, we demonstrated, that kind of not with the new Final Cut, but we demonstrated a very similar workflow on iPad Pro at NAB this year. Again, using a Go dock, for that whole ingest create with an Envoy Pro FX bus power Thunderbolt
Hmm.
SSD connected to the Go dock to provide the performance and the capacity to do these sorts of projects. And that's actually, we were really excited. Apple a couple years ago showed our FX. They actually showed it attached to an iPad when they introduced their first Thunderbolt iPad Pro versions. So
Look at that.
it's the right stuff that we've got, and
There is
you've
on
got the
this
right
big
stuff. And
stage.
all that. I mean, the biggest thing for us, and again, we're kind of that.
Don't
We're
be humble.
always
Look at you. Don't try to be humble, dude. You've been around here too long. I've known you for 20 some years. Don't be humble.
but it's true. I mean, look, we get to exist because of all that you guys do, and the most important aspect of that is everything just has to work.
Hmm.
The best thing in the world is when you forget we're even there because your full focus is on what you're creating, what you're capturing, what you're working on in whatever space. And our stuff is we play that background supporting role, but we really love it. I mean, this is why we're here, and we've got great people that really are passionate about these different workflows and different media needs that kind of take that engineering and the sauce that we've always had and elevate it to really see it focus for what you all what you all need to be doing and have to accomplish every day.
Love it. Love it. Along these lines, right? Because we're talking about what's new and innovative, and then talking about mobile, talking about maybe acquiring new gear. Uh, I don't know if it's a pivot, but I will say what you've done with the acquisition of Sell Your Mac, right? Because there's a lot of other companies, a handful of other companies that I would say I trust that are out there for trade-ins and things of that. But now you're bringing that in house, and I can guarantee you again, once this announcement, I'll stick on this particular announcement. So once the announcement came out this morning that Apple's releasing Final Cut Pro on the iPad, a lot of folks that have an Air or a lot of folks that have a 11-inch are going to want to upgrade to a 12.9. Go make sure they go to an iPad Pro. Talk a little bit about this acquisition of sellyourmac.com and why you thought that was important for the OWC brand.
Sure, again, this kind of goes back into we've got these capabilities for upgrading, enhancing, extending the life of technology. There's we people complain a lot about what Apple offers when you go to do a trade-in. I mean, it's not always that financially. It makes it harder, perhaps, to move on to if it is time to move on to new hardware. So, Sell Your Mac was a big win for us. I mean, we have a unit, a division of the company that's been refurbishing systems now for about 8 years. We got into it just because we saw a need and there was opportunity. Because it might be time for you to move on, but then there's workflows out there that depend on what you may have today. So this was a real win opportunity to give people another avenue and elevate this. Actually, City Mac's been doing it for a while, and they do it really, really well. They were very like-minded in terms of their philosophies, how they treat customers, and it was a really great fit for OWC and allowed us to come into this area and grow it. And number one, be able to take more in from customers that are upgrading, but also have a greater selection for those that can use. Sometimes not even yesterday's gear. Sometimes it's gear that just came out 2-3 months ago. Somebody's changed their mind. There's a situation that's come up, whatever it might be. But ultimately, continue to have that whole cycle. So,
Yeah.
really excited to have a really. I mean, we make it easy for the customer. I mean, it's very smooth. It's transparent. It's honest. I mean, we liked these guys for a while in terms of just how they ran their business. And when we had the opportunity to bring them into the OWC fold, so to speak, it really, in terms of our used Mac, our buy and sell on the Mac side, it really completed it for OWC.
If you ever bring in KEH or MPB, right? Because that's typically where I will trade in my camera gear. I'm all in, brother. Because they're getting a lot of my business right now in terms of trade in, trade up, that kind of thing. So KEH, MPB, just take a look at their financials, see if they fit somewhere within the OWC family of businesses, and I'll be a huge advocate for that as well. Just putting that out there in the universe, man.
We're going to get this Sell Your Mac thing moved to full optimization, full engagement, and from there the sky is the limit.
Love it, love it. Where are we now, right? In terms of conversations about mobile storage technologies, right? We've had, and it seems like you're continuing to have the discussion about Thunderbolt, the Thunderbolt conversation, right? Just from a consumer's understanding perspective. But what's next for OWC / Mac Sales / again, all of the companies? Where are you at short, mid, and long term for mobile storage technology for digital content creators?
Sure. Honestly, we just continue to make it bigger. I mean, the speed is absolutely been maintained. Whether you're 10G, for some 4K needs or 8K, we bring in the FX, which now is up to 4 terabytes of storage, plug and play, bus powered. The Thunderblade is still a big industry de facto. That goes up to 32 terabytes. It's externally powered, but it's 32 terabytes. It's end-to-end, 2,500 megs a second. Incredible for editing on, and super purposeful and used very widely for ingest and just data acquisition and shipping. Bring in the media cards, get the data ingested and duplicated, and then get it shipped out is something that the Thunderblade is instrumental in every day on countless projects. So from when you look at mobile and Thunderbolt is still 40 gigabits Thunderbolt. I mean, it's refined, right. Whether it's Titan Ridge, all the chipsets today, I mean, they're extremely stable. The speed is if it's Thunderbolt, it's 40 gigabits. Thunderbolt 3, it's USB-C, I should say. If it's Thunderbolt with USB-C, which was introduced back in 2016, we're still effectively the same Thunderbolt today. From the very first Thunderbolt 3 that was introduced on some of the early Macs, the biggest step up is support of 8K, and that happened in 2018. Again, Thunderbolt 4, you only buy a Thunderbolt 4 peripheral if it has certain features that you want on it. That's downstream Thunderbolt ports. You only get that with a Thunderbolt 4 hub or dock. The Thunderbolt 3 devices that are powered only have a single downstream port. It's only a Thunderbolt 4 device. They can take off one USB-C port off your computer and give you 3 going out the other way. But in terms of everything else, for storage, especially for storage, you need high-speed storage, want high-speed storage, want a high-speed adapter. Thunderbolt 3 is the only way to go. If you want a dock, I mean, still our 14-port dock is king of the hill out there in terms of ports and full performance. You can add ports to a Thunderbolt 4 dock, but you literally get 1/4 of the total bandwidth of Thunderbolt on a Thunderbolt 4 solution, which is why you don't see all these things being converted to Thunderbolt 4. It would not make sense. That was, again, from a peripheral point of view, Ghost and Ridge, which is what you use to build anything that you're going to call a Thunderbolt 4 product with, was not designed to replace Titan Ridge or Alpine Ridge. Alpine Ridge gives you these great portable devices. Titan Ridge gives you even more horsepower and higher end video for desktop devices like our docks. And then you have, again, Ghost and Ridge if you want downstream ports. If you want lots of ports with maximum performance in a dock, you buy our Thunderbolt 3 dock because it has the absolute maximum bandwidth available, the full bandwidth of Thunderbolt for all the ports that it offers. If you want downstream Thunderbolt ports and less ports but with good performance, then you get a Thunderbolt 4 dock. It has a great port selection. There's enough bandwidth for the ports that are on that dock. It's fewer ports because you have, again, 1/4 the bandwidth, with the rest of the bandwidth being used to do the switching to enable 40 gigabit downstream ports. Now, as we get into the future, the Thunderbolt 5, which is probably about a year away, and it's going to be interesting to see. We don't know yet what Apple's plans are. We know, Intel has made announcements out there, so we're expect to see Thunderbolt 8120 or Thunderbolt 5 probably sometime around this time next year. We'll see. we'll have, I mean, that's going to be a whole other level of step up.
Right.
But in the here and the now, with everything that we have today, if it's Thunderbolt and Type C, and especially if it's OWC, I can't speak for non-OWC products, it's certified and it is going to give you the highest performance possible, for your Thunderbolt interface. And Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4, they are the same thing when it comes to the interface and the level of technology. The only place, and I just have to say, so there's two places I will name, and then I'll try to stop talking about this, but it came up at NAB again. It just gets under my skin.
I know. And I told you I was going to pick at it a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when they ask, hey, when's the Thunderbait going to be called Thunder? When's it going to go to Thunderbolt 4? And it's like, my answer is, and I have to answer it this way, and then they ask, you would not buy it if it was Thunderbolt 4. And they go, well, why not? Because it'd be slow. It would cut the speed, even with hard drives, by about 50%. Well, why is that? Because it's not what that chipset's designed for. Thunderbolt 3 is old. No, Thunderbolt 3 is not old. And I don't blame anybody. I mean, the marketing, Intel used this to fix two things. One thing in particular. They used it to fix the PC side, because Thunderbolt 3 on Windows PCs is just a big old mess. I mean, there's different firmwares, there's different compatibilities, there's different things enabled. They really made some compromises to get Thunderbolt onto all these machines before Thunderbolt 4. And the implementations, I don't think they foresaw just how messy it was going to be. Because here you have Apple that implements the absolute highest standards possible, all the capabilities on every machine that they put a Thunderbolt 3 on in USB-C. And then you go into the PC world, and some are half speed, some don't have proper PCI lane allocation, some don't support PD, some, if you don't connect the cable right, display
that's
lane.
true, right there, yeah.
It's a mess. I mean, that's where, and we still have customers today. This is the worst thing with Thunderbolt 3. Customers will custom build a system and put in a Thunderbolt 3 card, and they're buying this here, buying that there. They bring it all together, and then something's not working right. They call us and say, well, why does this work? And we'll work with them on it, and then we say, well, there's a firmware difference that's not right here. And then they'll argue, because it's just supposed to work. It's like, if you buy a pre-built system, yes, with Thunderbolt 3, for the most part, it's going to work. It's going to work to whatever specifications they say. But when you put all this stuff together, you're really, there's a lot of, especially when you come from the Mac space. People build these, will come from the Mac world and go build a PC. Some people will understand what they're doing. Others approach it like it's a Mac in terms of it. You just put this stuff together and it works. And it's just not the same with a custom built PC. You have to expect it. Spend a little more time under the hood. I remember playing with PCs, and it's still the same today. It's sometimes this even happens with a Mac, but usually, this is pretty common on a PC where you do the same exact thing 3 times over. First time it doesn't work, second time it didn't work. You haven't changed anything, not that you know of. You've rebooted in between. On every time. Third time was the charm, and magically it just starts working. There's extra. there's just strangeness that sometimes happen, but until decided Thunderbolt 4 was going to be a line in the sand. If you buy a PC with Thunderbolt 4, it is the full implementation without any exception. There's no variants or allowances for different capabilities. If it's Thunderbolt 4, it has to do everything that Thunderbolt 4 supports. And that, for a Windows user, was a big step forward. And then the only other thing that Thunderbolt 4 gets badged nicely for are cables. If you purchase a Thunderbolt 4 cable, that will work with everything that is Type C to Type C. It doesn't matter if it's USB, doesn't matter if you're doing power, doesn't matter data, whether it's 5 gigabits, 10 gigabits, 20 gigabits, or 40 gigabits. If it connects with Type C, Thunderbolt 4 cables are guaranteed to work with everything universally, limited only by the capability of the periphery you're connecting or the host. So whatever the maximum negotiated speed and power are going to be, that cable will do it. And that's a nice thing, because USB-C cables, that's another mess, because you don't know what necessarily the power delivery is. Some of the nicest cables. Yeah. One of the nicest cables out there, Apple's cable, is really just for power. And if you use it to try to connect even a USB device, it's USB 2 speed. You don't know that on the cable though. And you have all these things in between. And some cables don't. It's number one. It's one of the number one things people call in for tech. And that actually reminds me of one other thing I want to bring up for number one tech calls. Another number one tech call we used to run into, was for soft RAID, and that was due to a security setting you had to make when you were installing software for the first time on your Mac. This isn't present, has never been present on a PC, but on Mac, you had to do some security setting adjustments to allow basically an application and a driver, they're going to be talking to storage. And as of Mac OS 13.3, this is no longer required. So software 7.5 in conjunction with Mac OS 13.3, software just straight installs. There's no security settings you have to do anywhere for software anymore, as long as you're on 13.3 or later. And that's a big step forward. And we kind of did a little blog a few months ago on just what we've done internally with the security on our code to get certified in terms of our own security level and just the safety of our application. And it's a huge plus for any of our customers. And it eliminates really one of the other than plug and play, that's now it with software, which was just a big step forward, because it was very easy to think you were saying yes to something and not actually enabling the driver, and then wondering why it kept saying you had to do something. And we're glad to have that in the rearview mirror.
Love that. Listen, I was consciously quiet because wanted to have that explanation from the expert, because again, I know that that's a huge conversation piece, because we as coaches, advocates, right, educators also have that conversation with consumers and don't necessarily always go into the what and the why. And I just want to say I appreciate you for going into kind of the what and the why, and the delineation between 3 versus 4 and what really is real and what really isn't, is just marketing. So I really appreciate you having that piece right there. The last thing that I was going to ask, man, was because we actually brought it up on the screen just a little bit about the Thunder Base, and what's the conversation that you're having or you're seeing with folks? Again, external. So let's talk external storage, USB drives versus the NAS, and again, that could be a whole different type of conversation as well. It can be a use case conversation, but coming back to those that are creators, coming back to those that are out here creating 4K content all the time, large files, and needing to store that, needing to archive that. So again, having a whole bunch of externally stacked USB drives versus a network attached storage. What's your thought patterns on that?
I just tell them to go. I mean, certainly for independents, go to products like the Thunder Bay 8.
There you go.
You sure have backup, but that gives you massive capacity, very economical, and it's super fast. I mean, you're sustaining data rates, RAID 0 that approach 1,700, 1,800 megabytes a second. So it's fast enough to edit. The nice thing about soft RAID, it lets you create multiple volumes on a single disk set. If you buy a hardware RAID, in addition to spending a lot more money and getting lower performance, you also are limited to effectively a single volume across the entire disk set.
Good point.
And even if you partition it, it still maps in where it's going to map in. I mean, it fills from the outer in. When you use soft RAID, you can create multiple true logical volumes, which means you can have a volume that's optimized for your video editing that occupies the outer tracks. It will do that automatically. And then you can have another volume you create. You want to create probably 40 to 50% of the volume you create as editing space, have plenty of open space. The rest you can create as a secondary volume, which will then occupy the inner tracks. It's still fast, but it's not as fast as the outer tracks. Drives get slower as you approach the inside of the closer you are to the spindle, the slower the real relative speed. So this gives you maximum performance, lots of space. You can have archive space, workspace, whatever it is you need. And as far as for this kind of work, it's always ideal to work on a locally attached drive versus a NAS. And I'm not saying no to NAS. We do Jupyter. We have product that you can move up that for where you need shared storage. But if you're an independent, having attached drives and then having even having project drives is still pretty efficient. If you're doing a heck of a lot of, you're creating terabytes and terabytes and terabytes. At some point in time, you might even look at LTO. Doesn't mean that gets expensive, but it all depends upon what work you're doing. Okay. Otherwise, a couple of Thunder Bays gives you built-in redundancy with RAID 5 on the actual storage against drive failure, and it's very, relatively speaking, to what you're storing, especially today by today's standards. Compared to what storage costs, I don't care if you go 5 years or 10 years back, go 15 years back. It's insane. and
Yeah.
how much storage you can
Well,
buy for
and
so
again,
long.
it's a price versus cost conversation, right? If the if the data is so valuable to you, then you're going to go ahead and maybe open up that wallet just a little bit more to get the higher quality gear. So,
Yeah, buy good gear because that's the thing. I mean, that's having the right gear means you're not going to be dealing with issues. It's, I mean, yes, you can say. I mean, there's so many ways to rationalize it, but and I just want to make it. The big comment I make out there is you shouldn't be expecting failure. You should be prepared for failure. I mean, the bottom line is that hard drives in particular, they do fail. At some point, they're going to fail. You should always have a good backup strategy, but don't buy something. I mean, with a rationalization that's going to fail, buy something because it's going to work well for you. And well, in the case of something like software, it is going to tell you before a drive is actually dead and dying, or I should say, in its early phase of dying, not even before it's starting to throw errors. And there's always critical failures. I have to be disclaim that there are all sorts of different ways a drive can fail, but the way a drive normally goes bad, software is telling you way before smart flags the drive and while it's still operating the way you need it to operate. And then you can replace it, we rebuild fast. Your data never goes to the dark side of the moon. You can always see your volume, which is a nice software feature. It can take a week or 2 weeks with some hardware raise to rebuild. Software, you can still access your data while it's rebuilding, which is really, really nice. If you really had to, you can even continue, doing your project, even with one drive down. You don't have redundancy in a RAID 5 with the drive down, but the bottom line is you aren't, how to say, out your project, it's just even peace of mind. It's, a drive
and
fails
that's
in some
huge. Yeah,
solutions.
that's huge, right? Because you only get us as creators only get that one take or that one opportunity to get that clip. So it better be on that drive or it better be accessible. That's a good point.
Nobody likes to wait. I
No,
should say
that's
nobody
true.
likes to not know, have uncertainty for any period of time. And
Yeah.
throughout everything, we try to give you lots of predictability and certainty, certainly with the when it comes to the safety of your data. So
Awesome.
it's again, I can barely. It's very difficult. I say it's hard to even explain
Well,
on
you
a
you
tool
ride
like that.
right down the middle, which is a good CEO move right there, right? No, you're like I've got the NAS and I got the external drive, so go with either. That's okay. You ride the middle. I will just say
Well,
I
no,
was.
no, I'm riding on the direct attached. I mean, for independence, I'm a big proponent of a
Yeah,
direct attach just because that's where the most performance is,
yeah,
the most control is, and there's just a lot less to spend time tinkering with. When it's attached to your computer and it's a solid product, you're going to get maximum speed with minimal, I hate to say it, with minimal effort. A NAS, I mean, as you get into sharing, I mean, hey, that's when you step up to a NAS. When you want, I mean, there's all sorts of other reasons to get a NAS, of course, but for editing and for direct work, even for your archive, you got to kind of weigh, what you need. And the other thing, and we'll be talking more to that probably at the next NAB, is turning your own storage, whether it's via mini or right on the system you're using, into available NAS capacity. There's different ways to
okay,
go that
okay,
keep life really good and keep you in control of your hardware and your how to say your data. Cloud, by the way, I'm not against the cloud, but I do strongly believe that's tertiary, backup. I mean, it's not
yeah,
something that to depend on the cloud is putting a lot, relatively speaking, I mean, it puts a lot at risk. I mean, it's one of those things that works great until one time it doesn't. And that's, yeah, you'll get past that hump. But again, the probabilities, just own your data.
yeah.
I don't
We've
think that should ever
seen
change.
yeah, we've seen so many times where AWS or some of these cloud providers have gone down or had an outage, and again, consumers don't realize how much of their daily lives rely on those instances that are based in the Google Cloud or an Amazon Cloud. What I was going to say is that this past weekend I was 35,000 feet in the air, and I was using the Atlas Pros, I mean Pluses, editing some work. So yes, having that local data plugged into my MacBook Pro, 35,000 foot in the air, you, me, and Final Cut Pro were making it happen. So appreciate you for that, young man. Uh,
Yeah,
this
pleasure.
Larry, every time you come, you just a wealth of knowledge, right? And just at a layman's perspective, too, right? I mean, at the consumer perspective, being able to talk to folks instead of at folks about these higher end technology conversations. That's kind of why I labeled this, uh, enterprise level technology with a consumer focus. Right. So for that, I appreciate you coming in, spending some time. Let's not wait for a whole nother year. Because again, it was May 18th, 2022. Dude, you're not that far away from me. You've got the keys to the front door. You can log on to the studio at any time, and we can talk about technology or some of the other stuff that you got going on. I know you got a lot of other good stuff going on in your world too. So I'm putting that out there in the universe while it's recording, so you know that, and so other folks know that as well. Uh, where can
Well,
people find you,
whenever you have a
brother?
slot, I'll
Yeah,
challenge. Hey,
really, come
call
on.
me up, drop me a line. But let's make sure we get stuff on the books that's right after WWDC. How about that?
I will be at. Well, I won't be at WW. I got okay. Um, I will be in the town of WWDC, so I might actually be in Santa Clara at that time. So I'm gonna definitely be close to campus for sure. But I will make sure we do that. I will make sure you
Yeah,
got something cooking,
I think
don't
it'll
you?
be worthwhile to do something shortly after that event.
That you don't have to tell me twice. Listen, you don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah.
I love it, Larry. Tell folks where they can find you, man, because you got a lot of stuff, and I really want to kind of consolidate in terms of where they can either find you, find more information about the company, and some of again the short, mid, and long term things that you're working on.
Yeah, I'm personally easy to find on Twitter and LinkedIn, but absolutely positively, please, visit us at owc.com, just owc.com, or maxsales.com, which I've seen actually you got it right there for you. So perfect. Appreciate that, James.
You know, done this a couple of times, brother. Done this a couple. Larry O'Connor,
Spot on.
you're a good dude. You're a good dude, and what you're doing is of value to the industry, right? Folks who need technology, folks that need technology to work at a fair price, right? Again, because you always have to have the price conversation, but you charge for the value and you charge for the worth, and you have some capabilities that not everyone offers, and I think that needs to be another part of the conversation. So we who understand appreciate you for that consciousness of putting those capabilities into your technology. Uh, I
No, thank
asked
you for saying that. I
I asked
appreciate it.
manufacturers this too, so no worries, man. I know you're on Amazon. Does that matter in terms of where people procure? Would you prefer going to maxsales.com, or if we go to right? Because I've asked a couple of companies that, and they did have kind of a different spin on that.
Sure. In our case, hey, well, I'll say it like this: if you, it's better for us if you buy it direct.
Okay.
Always is, but
Yeah.
we understand. Hey, certainly if it's between Amazon and if you're buying from one of our channel partners outside of Amazon, please continue doing so. We appreciate your support through them. If it's a choice between OWC, MaxSales.com, and Amazon, certainly it's we prefer you to come to
Mhm.
MaxSales.com, but understand the convenience of Amazon. And the one request I'd make if you buy it on Amazon, give us a review there. Reviews help other people find our product. One thing that is absolutely the case out there is we have some of the best kept secrets in the industry in terms of the solutions we make, and the more help we get from you, the more people that can benefit from what we offer, and that's I'd like to believe is a win for everybody. So please review us if you buy on Amazon. That's
There it
actually
is.
marching orders I was given from our marketing guy to make sure I mention whenever it comes up.
He's probably watching right now as well. Listen, and then I didn't want to gloss over or assume that question right there, because again, that's been a conversation that needs to happen from some smaller organization as well. But again, someone has established, you just want to know, what your perspective is on that. Larry O'Connor, go get on that surfboard that's behind you, man. Go ahead and
I
clock
need.
out for
There's
the
no
day.
water nearby here, but
Ah,
one
jeez,
of these
that's
days
right.
that'll be back in the water.
That's right. All right, man. Listen, you're on the calendar for right after WWDC. We're gonna make it happen. Going to be exclusive. It's probably just going to be here on YouTube, and we'll talk about whatever it is that you're announcing. Take care of yourself, man. You are doing the good work out there.
You too, James. Thank you so much, and
All right, brother.
everybody.
Be good now.